Well, I was born in Cuba many years ago, and at 3 years old we moved to the United States. So I grew up in the United States. I did all my formal education in the United States. I served in the military in the United States, and for the last 20 years I've been in Panama, the Republic of Panama, doing business out of Panama. Not necessarily in Panama, but using Panama as a base for international commerce. And what's interesting is that I didn't study agriculture. I'm not an agriculture engineer or agronomist. I actually studied banking and finance, and never worked a day in a bank, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I've been over 33 years now in the food business, in all aspects of the food business, from food production, processing, packing, distribution, marketing. So I've kind of touched the whole supply chain aspect of food production.
Okay, and so basically, I know we had the opportunity, to speak before, and of course, I'm aware of FoodChain and the work that you guys are doing, and I have to say it's very interesting because, from what I understand, you want to leverage cutting edge technology and bring it to the production of food, if that is correct.
Yes. But because of our many years of experience in the food business, we've lived with all the issues and problems, because it's not really an easy business. The farmers, in general, they get up early, they take all
Yeah.
the risks, they have to put up all the money, and then they do a lot of good, decent work to provide food that we all need. And then what happens is when it gets into the market, then they lose all control. And that's happened to us. And we're a pretty sized company, big company. And even then, we have all the distribution, logistics, and supply chain problems. So when blockchain came around a few years ago, we started analyzing it. At first, it was for our own business. We said, okay, how can we apply blockchain for our business? And the more we delved into it and we started analyzing it, we felt that this thing, the blockchain and technology, can serve a bigger purpose. So then we decided to develop the food chain, which basically provides a lot of benefits for the farmers. It's not only traceability, which is what a lot of people out there are developing blockchain for, the process of traceability in the supply chain, which is great. It's needed. But we go a little deeper. We basically are trying to get the farmer directly into the buyers. So we've developed that process of it too, and where they can get more money for their products. There was a study done by the USDA not too long ago, the United States Food and Drug Administration, where out of every dollar that the consumer spends in the supermarket, only 8.5 cents goes back to the farmer. And when I started reading that, we realized that even here in Latin America, it's the same thing. When, for example, when we produce watermelon, ship it to Europe, the United States, the farmers, we get paid anywhere from 8, 9, even at the best of times, 10 cents a pound. Where you go to the supermarket, they're selling for dollars a pound. So there's definitely, so then you ask yourself, well, where's the problem? And the problem is just there's too many distribution chains. It goes everywhere. It's very convoluted. So the blockchain is bringing an order, an efficiency that has never been seen before. So we provide that. But aside from that, we also provide faster payments. We're using cryptocurrencies to be able to, through smart contracts, be able to guarantee payment for the farmers, and as well as developing the ecosystem, the seeds, the fertilizers, the logistics, providing the services to the farmer, and then creating a very holistic ecosystem for the support of the farmers. And so that's what we initially started develop, which we already have. We're already in the market, recently initiated. But then because of the COVID-19, the whole thing kind of, stood on its head in the sense that we had for third phase development, where we were going to develop a system where we know where the farmers are, what food they produce, how much they produce, what is their season to produce that food, and then through algorithms we can mix and match where the food is needed the most. Because what happens in the farming community is that if a farmer has a record uh, production of, let's say, cucumbers,
Hmm.
so the next year all the farmers around him produce cucumbers. And then what happens? There's an oversupply.
Overflow,
The
yeah.
market drops, right? And then everybody's like, oh, but then the tomato guy,
Yeah,
he has a bumper crash. So then everybody moves over to the tomato the
yeah,
following
yeah,
year,
yeah.
and it's ongoing situation with the blockchain and using the Internet of Things and AI and a lot of these new technology. We'll be able to, together with governments, decide what food is being produced, the quantity that's being produced, and where it's needed.
And I
Uh,
guess, so, sorry to interrupt you a moment. I guess this is interesting. I'm not very familiar with Latin America or the US, but I know that, for example, in Europe, each state, each country has quotas of production, and all of what is produced beyond those quotas is just waste. And I remember in Italy there has been a big problem. I believe it was a couple of years ago, and a lot of farmers actually protest against it because perhaps due to this process that is currently happening that you describe, what trends one year, everyone focuses on the next year, but then by then there is another trend because of like supply and demand. The problem was like, of course, a lot of effort, in terms of both time and money from the point of view of the farmer was just wasted. And then you would have to compete with very cheap product coming from outside of the European Union. So I guess that this system that you are implementing right now should be able not only to allow government to better control the volumes that are produced so as to comply with international treaties, and so on and so forth, but also to allow the farmers not to waste resources on something that then has to end up in the waste. Correct? Like that should
exactly.
be the
In Latin America, it's not like Europe. It's different, and it's pretty much open.
okay.
Some countries, I know in particular Colombia, they do try and to produce food in regions that food is better conditioned to be produced in. In the case of other countries, they're wide open. Farmer can produce anywhere and the amount. But I've never heard in Latin America restrictions on the amounts. Because Latin America as a whole is like a breadbasket. A lot of food is produced, shipped to the United States, Europe, and other countries, and they need that. But the issue then comes always to the supply chain, through the market, who buys the food, how many intermediaries are in the middle. And the problem, look, the intermediary serves a purpose, and what I say, intermediaries that provide a value. There's some intermediaries that basically, and I know when I say this, they don't like it, but it's true, is that they receive a truck, they take the product out of one truck, they put it into another truck and ship it up the line. And then what happens is they charge high commissions. All their administrative costs to be able to do that is charged, and all that goes back to the farmer. So if you have two or three in the line, that's why the farmer's only getting 8.5 cents. Everybody else is making all the money, but the one that does all the work, takes all the risk, is the
Yeah.
farmers. So what the blockchain for the food industry is going to do is really make it a level playing field. Complete transparency, complete traceability, that everybody from the supply chain, whether it's from the farm all the way to the consumer, will be able to actually see what's going on,
Hmm.
and pinpoint where the pressure points are and how to relieve that pressure points for a smoother flow of product movement. The world body says that there isn't, people talk about scarcity, and there's going to be hunger here and all that, and it happens. But the world organizations are telling us, and I believe this, that it's not an issue of not enough food being produced. It's an issue of supply chain, moving that food to where it's needed.
Yeah.
And everybody, like Latin America, everybody moves to the United States, and in particular Miami. Just to give you an example, so Miami, all this food product comes in from Latin America. So you obtain the lowest price, or they pay the lowest price for that food. But if you just go up the coast a little bit, Philadelphia, New York, that same box of banana, the same box of pineapple, whatever it is, they're paying $2, $3 more. And that has to do because of intermediaries, but it also has to do that supply and demand, because every product that comes into one area, think of Rotterdam in Europe,
Yeah.
then ships out every place else. So obviously, all that receiving point, then there's a glut, so the prices are low. So with a food chain and using blockchain technology is going to alleviate, where it will be able to tell the farmer exactly where he can sell his product, where the highest demand is. And that's why when I said we're much more than just traceability. We have traceability, beautiful, because as a farmer we've been doing traceability for the last 20 years, and but it's much more. So we're applying the full potential of not only the blockchain technology, but IoT, AI, big data, machine learning,
See,
and
that is
applying it
really
to be able to liquidate.
pardon.
Uh-huh.
That is really, really interesting, because one of the questions that comes to me is, I have a few friends from school that ended up in Italy, as farmer or wine producers, and it's very, very difficult. At least I struggled a lot to adopt modern technology. They don't care about it. They're much more, hands-on, and they're more concerned about, the truck that they're using than they are about the phone that they have in their pockets. So in light of that, I wanted to ask you, have you found some difficulties in, converting and convincing farmers in adopting all of this cutting edge technology, which is very hard to understand also for someone who's relatively versed in technology? Has it been a challenge, or it's not
Oh,
particularly?
it's definitely a challenge.
It's a,
As a food production company, we've always applied technology, not only in the field but also in the plant. So technology to us is second nature. That's what we do. We've learned early on that technology, although yes, it's expensive to apply, but in the long run, it reduces our costs, makes us more efficient, more productive, and you save money, and actually even make more money. And yes, that is a problem. So we have a plan. Again, I guess it's 33 years in the food business. There's multilateral organizations. One of them is called IICA. It's in English. It's the Inter-American Agricultural Cooperative, something like that. And in Spanish is Instituto Internacional de Cooperación Agrícola. So what they do is they're a multilateral organization. They've been around for 75 years, and they dedicate themselves 100% at the farming level. They work with all the Ministry of Agriculture in Latin America, Caribbean. They're in Spain and Portugal and the United States. And their only sole mission is to help farmers produce food, apply technology in the field, and get them to bring that food into the market. That's um,
the role they
their sole
play. Yeah.
purpose.
Hmm.
And then you have the Inter-American Development Bank, and they also have programs to help farmers. And you got CAF, which is the Latin American Development Bank. All these organizations, the first thing we did over a year ago is knock on their door. We've been working with them throughout the years and say, okay, look, here's the issue, which they know quite well, of the farming problems, which is supply chain, distribution, marketing, selling the products, not necessarily from the production side, because they do a good job on that. And here's the food chain based on blockchain technology and all these other technology. And here's what we're going to do. So immediately they're like, wow, can you really do that? And I said, well, we're certainly going to try. At least the
Yeah.
technology is there. And so we set out to work at it. We have them as partners. And the agreement that we have with them is they will actually go out to the field together with the government, together with the local government, the local Ministry of Agriculture, and they will organize the farmers. They will train. They will educate on what the food chain is. They won't get into deep, study of what blockchain is, because they really don't care. We just want them to know that behind the scene, it's like the internet. Everybody uses email, but nobody really knows exactly how it works, or at least the majority of the people,
Yeah.
unless you're tech. So that's what they're going to train them. They're going to onboard the farmers to use the food chain, and then through our algorithms and our market making capability, find the buyers, whether it's regional buyers or international, United States, Europe, or whatever. So we have some very, very strong allies that are helping us precisely with that because they already work with the farmers. The
Yeah.
farmers trust them because one of the farmers are very distrustful. They're very
Yeah.
distrustful, and for a lot of reasons, and you can't really blame them. But these organizations they trust. And most of them, to be honest, most of them don't even trust their own agricultural ministry, but they do trust these organizations because they actually go and do work in the field hand in hand with the farmers. And so they're our allies. They're our alliance. We work with them. They're the one that's organizing the farmers, the governments, and helping us to be able to train the farmers to use the food chain.
See, that's what I love about FoodChain and about your project is that, blockchain, of course, is a very novel technology, and you have a lot of people which are building interesting project, but they don't have an industry expertise like the one that you have developed. So I love to hear from you all of the problems which you have encountered, during your career in the food production business and agriculture, and and how you apply new technology to solve that problem. It feels so real. And unlike, oh yeah, we're going to build this virtual world and we're going to distribute and it's going to be great. I love the problem solving perspective of this project. There is a real problem, and this is what we're going to address. Also, I wanted to ask you another question. I know that it is related to food chain, but it's something that I'm very interested in, and it is about vertical gardens. So I know that
Okay.
you also have experience in that, and I think that's extremely interesting. Especially, right now I live in Gibraltar, and in many other cities. I used to live in London, and you see a real problem. But vertical garden could perhaps be a very good way to solve that problem, at least partially. And I know that, for example, where I'm coming from in Italy, Milan, for the Expo, they built like those vertical gardens
Right.
in
I saw
Milan,
that.
and so I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. So, how do you get involved into it? What is your expectation going forward? How do you think how much they could contribute to maybe reducing pollution, or is it only a food production benefit that they offer? So, if it's fine for you, I'd like to go into that because
Oh, absolutely. That's we're very passionate about that as well. As a matter of fact, the food chain, based on blockchain, as we know, started because of the indoor farm. Because we have um, a mission to develop the indoor farms, as we call it, vertical farms or vertical gardens around the world. And we're right now building one in Geneva, Switzerland. We were finalizing one in the United States until this whole thing happened, so it's
yeah,
kind of on hold. In Latin America as well. And it started because we were having all these problems in the field: climate change, pathogen problems, lack of workers, because workers right now are migrating from the field into the cities. So there's a whole host of problems we were having, and we were experiencing a lot of losses. So then we basically say, okay, we got to kind of make a radical shift here, and in 2010 or 2012, I believe. Um, we came across an article by Dr. Kosai at a University of Chiba in Tokyo, where he says that they were going to go ahead and build food production facilities inside buildings. So obviously, as a farmer, that caught my piqued my interest. And as I mentioned earlier, we are big in technology. And so it took me over a year to finally set up a meeting with Dr. Kosai and his people at University of Chiba. And it was a very interesting meeting. We told him that we wanted to understand the technology. And he says, well, that they're not really giving out too much information at that point. Now they are, but at that point they weren't. And so they kind of showed us a little bit what it was. And so we came back to Panama, developed a research and development center, and we started testing everything. Because if it's inside, indoors, sun doesn't get in.
yeah,
So we had to use LED lights for photosynthesis for the plants to grow. And so we started testing all different types of LED lights, the nutrient content, the airflow, the temperature, because we had to mimic what was in the natural aspect in the
yeah.
field, and now scientifically coordinate or provide all the plant needs. And so we started testing and researching, and the first thing we did in that year is send our people to get trained. So we trained them and send them to Spain, and we send them to Mexico and the United States and Holland at Wageningen University. And we sent them to the Light Institute at Reston University in New York. to learn about LED lights and how that may affect the plant. So we spent a year really learning, because when after I came back from Japan,
Hmm.
the first thing I analyzed, and everybody in the team agreed, we went about 7 or 8 of us, that this was the future. So here we are now. So we've done all the research. We're continuing to do research. We started researching, like everybody else at the beginning, lettuce, and then cucumber, tomatoes, bell peppers, small
Well, so, sorry for interrupting,
watermelon.
David. I have a question. You mentioned Japan. It's funny because I used to have a fish tank, and I remember looking at like how to grow crop within the fish tank, and Japan was the most advanced one out there. There was
Mhm.
a system called Amano, I think, and basically they had like these revolutionary ways on how to grow crop, and it was incredible. At the time, it was mostly down to the nutrient and the volume of light per space, and also the quality of light as well. So it was about the wavelength
Right.
for the different stages of the plant. So when you need them to flower, then you would, I don't know, give them X amount of hours of that specific radiation, so on and so forth. But
Mhm.
one question that I have, in the fish tank, they get the water from the fish tank itself. I guess that is that a major problem? How to distribute evenly the drainage, the water, how do you distribute it on a vertical garden? Because of course it would tend to go down. Do you use normal soil? Do you use foams? Like how does that work?
No, the way we use it is hydroponics. Water,
Okay.
water. We don't use any soil, and we pump the water. These are vertical. What do you call this? Stands, and they go
Hmm.
levels. So, which is the how you maximize the use of space to grow food. And we pump the water up, and then it's recirculating. So the water comes down from level to level, and then all of a sudden goes back up, goes through a filtration system. The water gets oxygenized. We want to
Yeah.
have a high percentage of oxygen, and then it goes right back up and goes through all the cycle. And so it's a recirculating system that we have using just water, no soil.
And the nutrients are carried over proportionally, or by the end of it, it's poor in nutrient, and so you put crops which don't require as much nutrient at the bottom.
We produce in one stand. We produce the same product. If
Ah, okay,
it's
okay.
cucumber is cucumber. If it's lettuce, lettuce. But yes, it does deplete as it goes down, and but not that much. You don't see a difference between the top and the bottom.
The plants.
So, but it does get replenished, because by the time it comes back, it gets replenished. It gets up to 100%. It goes through a filtration system again so we avoid any pathogen problems, and then it comes right back down through the cycle. It's very scientific. It's very precise. And one of the things that we're going to do in the future is do what you were mentioning with the fish, which is aquaponics, where the what the fish eliminates, it's a lot of nitrogen. So
Hmm.
that gets run through plants. The plants absorb that. You have to add other nutrients to the plant at that time, but it absorbs that, and the plants cleans the water because it needs to be cleaned, and it comes right back as clean water back to the fish tank. Well, imagine these are huge, huge tanks with a lot of fish. And I've always liked that system because you're producing not only vegetables but also protein. And I think that with the COVID-19, it has. I think one of the things we've been saying for years, farmers have been saying for a long time, is food distribution, food security, sustainability, and now because of everything that's happening, I think that finally the consumers and governments are beginning to realize the importance of having food security. So moving on into the future, uh, the system has to change. I am convinced, because right now you read the news that farmers are dumping, thousands and thousands of pounds and kilos of product because they have no market, because the market they used to sell to was the restaurants and hotel
Hmm.
food service, so they're done gone. And I think that's a lesson, because one of the things that we have a lot of different distribution. We sell to different areas. We just don't sell to one supermarket. We sell to a lot. We don't sell just to them. We sell also to hotels. We sell to food catering. We sell to processor. So in our case, we haven't seen that need of dumping food because the channel of the hotel closed down, but now the channel of the supermarket that need more food. So basically, we shifted because it wasn't 100%. And I believe that the farmers that are having this problem that are dumping, I just heard today from a friend in Florida that they're dumping literally, tens of thousands of gallons of milk because there's no market for it. And it's a whole redistribution aspect. And I think this is going to open up the eyes for a lot of people. They're going to see that the supply chain is extremely vulnerable at this point. People don't move the product because they're people, so they're getting sick, so they can't move or work on the trucks. The shipping company I read yesterday, they're down by 32% in their movement. Those are food. That's a food products going back and forth around the world. So the logistics problem is going to have to change, but I think more so it's the distribution and how you distribute that food from a national level to a regional level to an international level. And that's what we're working on now with a lot of the governments in Latin America. So going back to the food chain, I mean, to the indoor farming. So yes, we have a mission to develop this over the world. We believe right now that's even going to be more important for a lot of reasons. It's more expensive to do an indoor farm, capital intensive, because there's a lot of technology.
Yeah.
Everything is technology. But the payback, getting that investment back, it's a lot faster than a greenhouse or traditional farming. It's less risky, and I say less risky
Because it's
because
controlled.
in open field, yes, open
Yeah.
field. If I plant 1,000 seeds
Hmm.
in the best optimum condition that they could exist, I'm not gonna produce 1,000 plants because there's something's gonna always happen in the field. But in indoor farming, I plant 1,000 seeds. I'm gonna produce 1,000 plants. And I can produce 365 days a year. It doesn't matter if it's raining, hurricane, snowing. I control the complete environment for the optimum use of the plant. So I can produce 365 days a year. And the other aspect is that you build this anywhere. You can literally anywhere you can build it. And right now there is a big movement from the field of people moving to the city. So that's where the bulk of the people, according to the UN report, about 85% of the people are going to be living in cities by 2050. That's a huge shift. And so the indoor farm is going to be needed. We need to produce more different types of food. And that's what our research and development center does. We're like I mentioned, we're doing a lot of different tests and a lot of different foods because the issue is not can you produce it under those conditions. The answer is absolutely. You can produce anything you can produce on the outside, you can produce in the
Yeah.
inside in the indoor farm. The issue is does it become economically viable? And that's what we're working now is to make those food products like tomatoes, for example, blueberries, strawberry, economically viable to be able to go to market. And so we have a big task ahead of us, and we're really big on the blockchain, the food chain, because that helps move everything. So we're busy. We're going to be busy for a long, long time.
I love a few things actually. As you spoke, I had a few questions coming up in my mind. First of all, I wanted to ask you one question: the quality of the vegetable that come out from the indoor farming, is it the same as a crop that grow outdoor under the sun, or the nutritional value is lower?
No, that's a misconception. It's all depending on the nutrient formula that you provide. Now we use our certified organic seeds and
Okay.
fertilizers, and that was part of initially all our tests we did. We wanted to make sure that the product was as good or better than field grown product, and it is because since we're in a hermetically sealed building and the way that we protect it, we there's no pathogen problem that comes in. There's no pests, so we use zero pesticides, zero herbicides. So right there, it's a much healthier
Yeah, that's
quality
incredible.
product. And what we also determine is that the light recipe, which is the combination of the different lights on the LED, gives it different nutritional value. It gives it a sweeter or bitter taste. I mean, there's a lot of science going behind this. And one of the things that we do every other year, we have a international congress on controlled environment agriculture, and we invite the top minds around the world, from MIT, Cornell, University of Washington, Wageningen University, and we also invite scientists from NASA, because NASA's, they have a program to go to Mars and
Yeah.
soon to the moon. So they're doing a lot of these tests in growing food and controlled environment agriculture. So this last Congress we had in November of last year, we had two scientists from NASA, and they came and talked about what they're doing, how they're growing it, and all that information is available for the farmers to use today, not for tomorrow. And so these congresses, we have people coming in from all over the world. So we have a very network of highly credible people that are doing a lot of scientific research on producing food indoors. And one of the things that they're doing at the University of Florida, which was interesting, Dr. Kevin Folta, is they're making seeds specifically for the indoor farm where they need less light than they normally would need even in traditional farm sunlight. So they're even, and it's not GMO. I want to clear that. It's different breedings, but it's not GMO type seeds, and they're doing it so they can produce more food with less
Less
light
light, yeah, more
intensity,
economically viable.
lowering. Exactly. So
Yeah.
we're excited about that because we're in touch with them and we're seeing the things that they're doing. And then that's going to really transform the indoor farming. Once that happens and they're already having success, they figure that seeds can be out next year. Once they do that, it's a whole game changer for growing food indoors. Now you'll be able to grow just about anything economically viable.
So
You can grow it now, but economically viable.
you said that it's not GMO, and how do they do that? They select crop that respond better to light, and they combine the seeds of this crop. That's how they do it,
Exactly. If
natural
you if you go
selection.
to the if you go to the forest, or you walk around someplace and you see plants growing with very little sunlight, because of
Yeah,
the
the
overhead
underforest. Yeah,
canopy, but they're still growing. Well, those are strands, that they don't need that much light. So I'm not a scientist, so I'm only giving you a
yeah.
layman's
Don't worry.
term. So basically, what they're doing is they're taking that strand, whatever, but they're not going into the embryo or to the cells like they do in
Yeah.
GMO. It's totally a lot of the seeds that we use today are done that way. They're breeding. It's called breeding. So yeah, it's not GMO. We won't use GMO seeds. We're 100% natural in that sense.
And I have another question, because it's really interesting when you combine, the production of protein together with the production of crops. And, right now there is this big talk about, I don't remember the name of the documentary on Netflix, but, it shed some light as to the fact that I believe majority of the carbon footprint does not come from cars, but comes instead from, animal culture, basically. So
Hmm.
from growing, cows and pigs, especially, there is a lot of nitrates. I remember at the time when I was in high school, nitrates going back, especially in pig farming, to the soil, and then it goes to the water, and that creates a problem with the algae in the
Right.
sea. So, do you think that perhaps this when vertical gardening, not gardening, apology, vertical farming becomes more viable, and it is combined with the production of protein and fish, do you think that that could perhaps help also, the environment in that sense, in that fish, the price of fish, which I believe at the moment stands quite high, which is why many people perhaps
Hmm.
eat more meat, uh, maybe that could facilitate, this cultural shift into eating more fish, which in any event, from what I understand, is also healthier than red meat. And of course, crop. Do you think that could also be another way in which, vertical farming could contribute to the environment? So
I think so. I think that, I personally like aquaculture. We haven't done it. We're right now trying to get to the point of developing the indoor farming for fruits and vegetables. But eventually we will start going into that direction. But like I said, I like the concept of vegetables and protein to feed the people, because you can only, unless you're a vegetarian or vegan, you can only eat so much
yeah,
vegetables. You want to have a little bit of protein. And yes, the problem is the fluctuance of the cows and the animals and the agricultural runoff into the rivers and into the ocean. Yeah, we understand all that. And but to be quite frank, as long as people want to eat meat,
Hmm.
I think it's going to be difficult. Um, Fish, yes, it's important. I like fish. I eat a lot of fish. I wish I eat more fish than meat. But it has to change. That I'm sure it has to change. I know there's a lot of tests right now of growing meat in a lab. Um, that I'm sure is going to become more prevalent and also economically viable because right now my understanding it's not. But there's definitely the more you can grow indoors, like fish, for example, aquaponics, and yes, there could be a reduction of the cost, and absolutely people would opt for that. But yeah, there's a possibility. Do I know if that's going to happen? Not
Yeah,
for certainty, but as the only way is the people say, I had enough of meat. I'm just going to go ahead and have a carrot instead, which would be good because that's what we produce. So the more people eat carrots, is better for us. Uh, but no, it really depends on the taste of the people. It really boils down to that.
I
You have
see.
to change their way of their diet, and some people are like, hey, I'm not giving up my meat. So
Yeah,
it's a personal choice. It's
it's
a
extremely
personal
difficult.
choice.
Thanks a lot, David. I believe we're good to go. I guess that we touched upon.
Excellent.
Would you like to add anything, or is there any topic that you would
No,
like?
we're open. We're a very inclusive company. We're doing alliances around the world. So if anybody interested in contacting us, feel free. We'd like to talk to you.
I'll put your details in the video when we publish it.
Thank you. I
Uh,
appreciate it.
David, I appreciate a lot actually you coming on Blockchain Rock. It's been a very unusual and a very very interesting episode. I'm sure those that listen to us, that watch the episode, will agree with me. Thanks a lot again for coming. I wish you all the best with your endeavors
Thank you, Amr.
and
Likewise.
all the best in this difficult period. And I hope to see you soon again.
Likewise. Thank you very much for having me. And remember, stay inside.
Absolutely.